Hey y'all, welcome to Clarity Tarot. I'm bringing you a little bit of a different reading today. I'm pretty excited about it. The topic is, what is your spirituality? So we'll see 4 decks here. And also, you may have clicked on this reading or just be in my channel and be like, I don't know that I have a spirituality. You might consider yourself agnostic or atheist. That's okay. This reading is still for you. And I'll just before we even get into this, I know spirituality is one of the deepest parts of us. And so I just want to name my bias and the way that I'm going to be reading on this topic. So my personal worldview on spirituality, which you may or may not share, but is important for you to know, so you know who's reading this topic for you, is that belief in science and belief in spirit kind of exist on 2 ends of a spectrum. So on the far end to the left, let's say, is 100% belief in science and no belief in spirituality or that which is unseen, unproven, impossible to verify in some way with any scientific means. And on the other side of that spectrum is total faith in spirit, no proof required, all based on your impression, your experience, your intuition, your moments in the connecting to the spirit world or with your own intuition. So, your spirituality could be 100% on the science side, and actually I'll talk more about that if there's a pile that comes out. Or your spirituality could be all the way on the other side. I'll also get into, if it comes up, a bit about religion and what serves you in your personal path in terms of how to engage religion. So I've never done this reading quite this way before, so I'm very excited to try it. So I have 4 decks here, and I selected the Temperance card from each of the decks because I just consider that a very spiritual energy from my personal point of view. And you'll notice that one of the decks, this deck number 2, it's just a playing card deck, so there are no major arcana. It's just the 4 suits. And so I just asked for what card should represent this best, and I drew the Knight of Cups, which is a love energy. So without further ado, let's look at your piles. Please remember this is a general reading, and not every message in the pile will apply to you, but I would be so curious to hear if it did or didn't. So please let me know what you thought of this reading. And you'll see a timestamp for your pile in the description box. So pile 1 is the Byzantine Tarot, and here's your Temperance card a little bit closer up. Pile 2 is my favorite clarifying deck, the first deck I learned cartomancy on, which is the Russian criminal playing card deck, and you have the Jack of Hearts, or also known as the Knight of Cups. Then we have the Tarot of the Divine, and here we have the Temperance card here, which actually I'm wanting to pause for just a moment and read to you from the book on this particular card. Let's see, 1 minute. So hopefully you can see that a little bit. So this is Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. The Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara identities are fluid, but their goodwill remains constant. Interesting. Just in case anyone else was drawn to that. And then we have the New York City Tarot with the Temperance card here. So, I also just have to say, I love this card and how, I don't know if you see the different baseball hats along the top, which is an interesting take on temperance, kind of blending of allegiances to all the different teams. All right, let's see you at your reading. Okay. Hello, Pile 1. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you here today. Really curious to see what we have here. So we're reading about your spirituality. So Spirit, I just ask that you guide me with this reading to provide the most clear messages, most useful to the viewer, most accurate possible. And immediately we have some dogs barking outside. I'm curious about that, how that may fit into your reading. So pile one spirituality. Cards flying. I'm gonna have to grab that one real quick. It's the Chariot. Wow, and then I just knocked my Rumi Oracle deck all over the floor. So I'm getting a bit of chaos already just to start out this reading with you, pile one. So wow, and then I just dropped another one. My goodness. We have the Chariot, the Fool in reverse, 10 of Staffs reversed, 10 of Wands reversed, the Star, Knight of Pentacles, 2 of Cups reversed, 9 of Wands reversed, Ace of Cups, and the 4 of Wands reversed with the Ace of Swords at the bottom of the deck. So let me just tune into this for a moment. So I think your spirituality is characterized by the love of truth, by the pursuit of what is most true. And for you, there's no such idea as a sacred cow, if you ever heard that expression, which means, you know, there's this one belief that I just won't look at. I'm not going to even consider revising it or consider that there might be another option. A sacred cow is something that it's almost like we just don't question that. We don't go there. And your spirituality is based on the opposite, actually. The need to question, the need to be really clear on exactly what's true and what isn't true for you. So when it comes to religion, whether or not you find yourself as a religious person, you'd be very interested in kind of the thought structure around beliefs. So if you are religious, that'd be something like studies in theology. Theology is just a word that means thoughts about God. So it's kind of like the owner's manual or the operational manual to who is God, what is spirituality, how do these things work. So I think it's very important for you to understand the parameters, the guidelines, so to say, what is true, what isn't true. People might describe you as a seeker, someone that's always looking for exactly the right way to describe something, to understand something, to understand a spiritual concept. You may have a streak of perfectionism as well. I think something that troubles you about your spirituality at times is that it can feel a bit chaotic internally as you're sorting through all the different possibilities, all the different ideas. Perhaps you even study multiple religions as a way to search for truth and understand what is real. With the barking dogs that were happening at the beginning of your reading, I think you may have come under a lot of scrutiny or condemnation or criticism at times for this. Maybe your current belief structure is not very aligned with your culture of origin or your family of origin. Others may see you as totally unbothered by this, but secretly it's an interesting word. Secretly, you feel really tender about it. Perhaps you wish you could believe like those you feel emotionally connected to. But there's something inside you that won't allow it. And what Spirit wants you to know is that this is a gift. this refusal to just go along with the crowd. You're a trailblazer. You may or may not have your own following. Even if you don't have an official following, you are a spiritual leader. And by that, I mean, you show people that what truly is sacred is finding the truth and finding what's true for you. Finding just the way to understand the nature of the spiritual world in a way that supports you. People watch you do this. For some, it's scary to watch you do this because they see what you have to go through, the condemnation or criticism that you might receive for this. And you do have sadness around this. You're very aware of the disconnection it can sometimes create between you and others. You may struggle to feel like you belong. You may struggle to feel like there's anyone out there with a spirituality just like yours. You may struggle to find someone to learn from. You know you're on the right path, though, because the love in your life is increasing. Not only love, but peace. And I'm finding myself really emotional as I'm reading for you, Pile 1, because I can feel how important your spirituality is to you and how little you've been understood by others. How little others have seen your true heart and your true desire. Perhaps one of the ways people judge you is for being rebellious, for being, what's that word? Not risk-taking, not frivolous. Hold on, I need to find just the right word. Reckless, perhaps. Irreverent, that's the word. Folks can sometimes experience you as irreverent, but it's the opposite, actually. Again, back to the sacred cow thing. It's like you think so highly of the spiritual world, of God, if you believe in a monotheistic God. You believe so highly of that you refuse to be attached to any particular belief for your own comfort. And this is what you see in others everywhere. You see them with their sacred cow, so to speak. You see them rigidly clinging to, no, this is how it is. And perhaps your voice is saying to them, is that really how it is? Is that even faith? Is that even religion? Or is it cultural? Is it generational? Is it your fear that's speaking to you? You search for the true reason behind your beliefs in your search for truth. I'm tapping in now to what some of those fears may be for you, Pile 1. And the deepest fear I'm feeling is that maybe everybody else is right. Maybe you have gone off the path. Maybe you're not God's favorite. Maybe you're not a true seeker of truth. Perhaps you're misguided and foolish. That is one of the deep fears that you have about your spirituality. But then you have moments of hope. You remember the result of all the seeking that you've been doing, the peace and the love that's in your life now more than ever. You reflect on your inner experience, your spiritual experience, as compared to what it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. You may have come from a very religious upbringing, and perhaps when you were younger, you were quite zealous, or what's another word? I'm noticing, by the way, how important it is for me to find the right word, the right way to describe this for you, Pile 1. I think that's also part of your spirituality. As I was talking about theology before, you're very aware of the power of words and the ways we describe something, the tone with which we describe something, and how that can change the whole meaning. So you're exceedingly careful in how you think about God, how you talk about God. So the word that I chose earlier for you when you were younger is zealous. I think a more accurate word would be sincere. Your authenticity and your sincerity has been obvious to everyone, even those that criticize you, from when you were really small. And when you were younger, that was more aligned perhaps with a traditional religion. I'm reminded of another quote. This is from the movie Dogma, one of my favorite movies, actually. Janine Garofalo's character is talking about faith, and she says, faith is like a glass of water. When you're small, it doesn't take a lot to fill it up. When you're an adult, the glass is bigger, and so it takes a bigger view of God, more faith. And you learn that for yourself, Pile 1. Your relationship with Spirit has never changed, actually. You have the same purity that you had when you were a child. The only difference is that you haven't found, let's say, the faith system of your youth that hasn't been compatible with the purity you feel with Spirit. You see too clearly how those systems have been corrupted by human politics, relationships, power dynamics, things that pollute or corrupt what you experience as a very pure connection. So coming back to the question, what is your spirituality? Your spirituality is the search for truth, search for purity, for innocence, for peace and love, for more openness, for more open-heartedness, in whatever form it takes. And again, I'm having a surge of emotion come up because you're willing to sacrifice anything for that. The opinions of others, your community, your belongingness. There's nothing that you value higher. Maybe even relationships, like very major relationships, like marriages or partnerships or friendships. Your relationship with your God. Nothing else matters. There's a range of different religious preferences here in this group. Probably the most accurate way to describe it would be that you have your favorite practices and beliefs and phrases from multiple faith systems. To you, the name of God doesn't matter so much. It's like when you're really intimate with someone, who cares what you call them? This is another thing you're criticized for. You just see if there's anything else here for this pile. Wow, I'm feeling just a total overwhelming wave of love and acceptance and admiration coming from Spirit for you. And the message that you are God's favorite. And so the final message is just to continue on your path, continue with your seeking, continue to measure your progress by the presence of love and peace in your life. And when your fears come up, you know what to do. Thank you, Pile 1. Wow, what a beautiful energy. I really feel like I need to go have a cry now. I'm so glad that you're on my channel, and I'm so glad that you're in the world. Hope to see you at the next one. Okay, Pile 2. I'm gonna adjust my microphone. I just noticed that it was off somewhere else. Maybe that's significant for you. I don't know. Do you work with microphones or something? Pile 2. Okay, let me just take a moment and clear the energy from Pile 1. It was quite intense. So, just asking Spirit, my God, to guide me in delivering this message with clarity and accuracy. And let's see for you, Pile 2, what is your spirituality? So it's interesting that you picked the Russian criminal deck. The one that has no major arcana. It's just an ordinary playing card deck. So already some things I might conjecture about you. Perhaps you're very uncomfortable even being at a tarot reading. Nah, uncomfortable is not the right word. Maybe you just don't like it when it gets too hippy dippy is the phrase that's coming to mind. I don't think I've ever actually heard that. That's hilarious. When it gets too hippy dippy, maybe even like the temperance cards, the image just doesn't resonate for you. Maybe you've heard me mention before that these cards are actually modeled after designs done in Russian prisons, which these are kind of the standard etchings made with either blood or ash. Maybe you have some connection to the prison system in some way. Maybe you feel a bit irreverent inside yourself. Just some possibilities. So take what may resonate for you and what doesn't. So, what is your spirituality, Pile 2? So far we have out the 5 of Swords, the 8 of Pentacles, the 3 of Wands, the Knight of Wands. Might be kind of hard for you to see the difference in this deck. These black cards are the Wands. I'm not even really sure how, well, I mean, it's like a club, I guess, but to me, they look pretty similar to the spades in this deck. Anyway, on we go. More about spirituality for Pile 2. Nine of Wands, Ace of Swords, 2 of Cups, 6 of Wands, Four of Cups. King of Cups on the bottom of the deck. Okay, let me tap into this for a moment. Your spirituality. There's a possibility that you are a cup sign, a water sign, which is Cancer, Pisces, or Scorpio. If that's not you, it's okay. You can still stay in the reading. Hi again, pile 2. So my camera totally cut out right when I was starting your reading, which I'm going to say something about in a moment. I really believe that anything that happens in a reading is the reading. And I started out your reading by talking about that you might be a water sign, a cups person, a Cancer, Pisces, or Scorpio, and that people may assume that you're a very practical, like logical, strong-minded person, and you are, but actually what is more true about you is this deeply emotional side, deeply vulnerable, deeply sensitive. And so that's a really important thing to have in mind as we talk about your reading. So the reason I think it's interesting that this video cut off just after I said that on the initial, before I realized that the recording had stopped, the next thing I mentioned is that you're a person that has experienced a lot of religious restriction or abuse, and that it's something that you don't like to talk about or maybe even always acknowledge in yourself as abuse in particular. You may not like that word. So the fact that the recording literally stopped as I was beginning to describe that, I find that interesting. Let me give you some examples of what I might mean with this. And I just want you to know, I mean, anytime talking about abuse is a difficult thing to hear about. So if you're feeling extra sensitive today, maybe come back to this reading a different time. But some examples of abuse, spiritually related abuse, would be things like justifying beatings because of religious scriptures. You know, there's a Christian one, spare the rod, spoil the child, that's used as a rationale for anything from spankings on the milder side up to total whippings on the extreme side. The other thing I was getting as I was talking about this before was gender-related abuse or restrictions. Some examples of this, perhaps if you're a woman, for example, there's only certain ways you're expected or allowed to show up in society or in your own family. Some choices you were or were not allowed to make based on your gender. Or similarly, perhaps you have other gender-related challenges, such as maybe you are part of the trans community or intersex or had some kind of really deep wounding and mishandling of yourself, your body, your sexuality by those around you for religious reasons. Perhaps you went to conversion therapy that was religiously motivated to what's that phrase in the Christian community? Pray the gay away. I think, so there's many of you in this group, and so for some of you, you experienced things that were quite extreme to anyone looking from the outside in, but inside that culture is very normalized. So you might have had the experience of like, am I the crazy one? And particularly when you're young, I've talked about this in other videos, when you're a small child, you have no one to blame but yourself. You can't blame your parent or your caregiver or an entire system of people, an entire community of people. They can't be wrong, it must be me. So the emotional damage that can come from this can be quite extreme. If your experience was milder than this, let me give a couple examples. I'm actually thinking of one from my own life. So I grew up very religious, but mostly, I don't know. I didn't internalize a lot of it. It's like I learned the rules and worked within them pretty well, and it didn't cause me a lot of issues until I got older. But I went to a private Christian college that had a contract that you had to sign, in which you would promise that you would not smoke, drink, use drugs, have sex before marriage, dance, gamble, and that you would attend chapel 3 times a week, amongst other things. So I wouldn't use the word abuse for that. I think it's just, in that case, it was a community of people that wanted to be intentional about, what are the rules and guidelines that we are all aligned around. And if you grow up and those are kind of your only options, community-wise, that leaves an impact and can be very difficult. So I just want to take a breath with that and say, whatever it was that happened to you was not okay. Your lack of options, your experiences, the things that you suffered in the name of God, they're not okay. And I wish I could describe to you the feeling of fury that is in me right now. And, based on my spirituality, this is the anger of God. The righteous wrath, actually, is the word that's coming to mind. And this is what happens when people believe they can speak for God. These kinds of abusive experiences can happen. Which is ironic because here I am, speaking for God. And I'm sure that irony is not lost on you, my viewers in Pile 2. I'm glad, and I'm getting the message that God is glad that you have that awareness, partially from these experiences. You have the awareness that others like to speak for God, and they may or may not have any right to do so. So some words I would use to describe your spirituality. Independent. I don't know if that's quite the right word. Let me try on a few words and I'll make sure to get the right ones. How about that? Freedom is very important to you. Freedom of choice. Freedom from misuse of power dynamics. You're a person that knows what happens when there's a system that's created. As soon as there's a system, then there can be abuse of that system. And whoever the underlings are, which oftentimes are children, get the worst of it. So you may be very wary of any kind of organized religion because you've experienced firsthand the damage it can do. So again, going back to initially how I described you at the start, I think people misunderstand you. They think that you're very logical, strong-minded, perhaps atheist or agnostic, and perhaps that's even how you describe yourself, Pile 2. I think what might be more accurate would be to say that you are a dismantler of abusive systems. You are hypersensitive to abuse of power in any situation, which makes you a champion for the underserved. And perhaps even in your work or in your daily life, this shows up. Perhaps you're intensely protective of children, of any people group without rights. Whatever group has less power in the situation, you find yourself stepping into a protector role. And Spirit is wanting to applaud you for that, because not only are you making a difference for those people, it's you standing up for yourself in a way now that nobody did for you when you were young. So it's a little strange because I'm not going to totally answer this question of what is your spirituality. The most accurate thing to say would be to say, that's not the question to ask for you. The question to ask for you is, where are you in your process of healing from the abuse you've suffered? And until you've experienced more healing, more peace, more soothing in those areas, the idea of a connection to God is just too painful, traumatizing. Actually, I would use the word traumatizing. If you were to, for example, if someone invited you to a church, and went to that service, I would expect that you would become flooded with emotion, traumatic memories, anger, rage. You would notice all the abuses or potential abuses happening in that system, and you wouldn't be able to feel anything else. So connection to God, it's the wrong topic. And don't get me wrong, pal, too. I have no judgment for this whatsoever. I'm not saying there's anything bad about that. I think it's, the main feeling I'm having right now is compassion and anger for what you've gone through and for what you still live with. I get the impression that there has not been any justice. There's been no justice for what happened to you. And that may mean something different for each of you. So what I want to do instead, first thing I want to do is I want to pull a chakra stone for what part of you was most impacted by these experiences. And so we have here the sacral chakra stone, which rules sex, creativity, personhood, authenticity. So your sense of who you are and who you are allowed to be was damaged, profoundly damaged by this. And remembering back to the beginning of the reading, you're a deeply emotional person, pile 2, deeply sensitive. You need to thrive. So I kind of think of people like plants sometimes. We're all just organisms that need certain conditions to thrive. And the pile 2 soil conditions, let's say, what you need is lots of personal freedom of expression, lots of opportunities for creativity, for going your own way, for finding your own path. I wouldn't be surprised to hear if some of you had a lot of issues with some traditional systems. Like, for example, if you went to a mainstream school, maybe you had a lot of problems with school. Or of a more, why can I not think of a better word than mainstream? A more traditional approach to education that may have been really difficult for you. Finding a career. like the typical, go to high school, go to college, get a 4-year degree, then I would be surprised if you had a typical path for your career. And even if you did, the whole time you may have felt like you were drowning inside. So finding your own path has been very difficult because of how this sacral chakra has been damaged. Other ways, and I'm mentioning these not to be like, oh, here's all the ways you've been messed up. Aren't you so messed up? That's not the point of what I'm saying. So please don't take it that way. I hope you're not taking it that way. I'm wanting to right now tell the truth about the impact of what you experienced. Because that there's been a lack of truth in the systems that you're maybe still connected to in some ways. Maybe it's your family or your hometown, whatever. There's been a lack of truth, a lack of accountability for what you experienced. So that's my intent in naming these. Another one is your sexual expression, which again could be a range of ways. It could have been just even a simple, like, sex is bad, no sex before marriage. That's the main one I'm getting that's coming through. Just basically squashing that. And that's kind of if I were to use one word for this experience and the impact on you, I think squashed would be the word. Suppressed, squelched. Like, just be a little bit less of you, pile 2. Just don't let that out. Go be this other person. And so each of you dealt with that a different way. Some of you maybe tried to people please and went along that way for a while until it created other problems for you. Maybe others of you totally rebelled. Maybe others of you, this is reminding me of that series I just watched on TV, 1923. It's kind of like a prequel to Yellowstone. And there's a character, a Native American character, that's sent to one of those boarding schools, Catholic boarding schools, and is horribly abused by the nuns there. And her approach to that is to fight back with extreme violence. I don't think that's a spoiler. I think that begins to happen from like the first episode or so. Apologies if I just spoiled the series for you, but yeah, all to say you could have gone a variety of ways with this experience. So what is your spirituality? Your spirituality is lying dormant. It is there. You do have one. As uncomfortable as that might make you to think about. In fact, it's possible for some of you, not all of you, but it's possible that how do I say this? I don't want this to sound like, oh, there's a reason for all the things you went through, because I don't believe that. I don't believe like everything happens for a reason. I don't like the way that's phrased. I don't find it accurate. I'll say it this way. Because of these experiences you've had, when you come to a sense of God, if you do, because not all of you will, and that's okay. If you come to a sense of God later in life, it will be deeply authentic to you, most likely separate from any system that you've been attached to in the past. And it will be profoundly healing for these experiences you've had. So those were I talked about some of the negative impacts of what you've gone through. I want to talk now about some of the gifts that have been revealed through these experiences, you're an extremely stubborn person in the best possible way. While this was happening, and certainly after it was happening, running through your mind was, this will not break me. Or they can't touch me in here, in some secret part of you that can't be broken. And surviving these experiences has shown you how strong you are, how much you can endure. And actually, I would say, uncovered or revealed your strength, which is in some ways almost like the foundation your strength is built on is rebellion. Let me say a bit more about that. You know, anger is a source of energy, a source of fuel. And you know that very well. I think you've dealt with a lot of anger in your lifetime, and you've learned that it's like rocket fuel. It can propel you towards what's important to you, and that is how you use it now. Maybe you even use this in your work or in whatever you do day to day. It's almost like, some of you may relate to this, not everybody, but it's almost like you look within yourself and think, what am I the most pissed off about right now? And that will help you know what your next steps are to take and what direction to go. And it seems weird, but like, that's a gift. It's a gift to be able to, however you get there, whatever your process, to be really clear on, this is who I am, this is where I need to go next, this is my next step. And you may not have the whole picture. A lot of times, perhaps you don't have the whole picture, pile 2. But you feel tapped into your life and the world and your needs, your desires enough to know the next step. So let's see, is there anything else to say in this reading? I'm hoping that you got a message that was helpful for you here today, pile 2, even though it wasn't exactly about, well, I guess we did describe your spirituality. I'd be very curious to hear if this was helpful for you. What I'd like to do to close your reading is I want to pull a card from the Rumi Oracle. If you're rolling your eyes right now, feel free to skip this part. I'm going to pull a card. I'll show you the card, give a brief one sentence interpretation of it, and then I'm going to read from the book, which is like 2 pages. So again, you know, whatever feels like most useful for you, stay for that part. So here's the Rumi Oracle. And let's pull a card for pile 2. Taking a while. I guess we're getting just the right one. Number 3, the dissolving light. Do you see in this picture how there's like this larger light being, and then inside there's almost like this person crouching? It reminds me of this picture I've seen used for like attachment or like healing the inner child. I hope I can describe this. It's like two figures sitting back to back with their backs to each other. And there's like the outline of them. And then smaller inside them is these two like inner children that are facing towards each other with their hands touching, trying to connect. So the initial thing I'm getting from this card is, you are a being of light. Half of you are rolling your eyes at that imagery, at that description. But there is nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your spirituality or where you are right now today or where you've been or how you've gotten to this point. But the encouragement to focus on is here, these parts that are feeling more vulnerable, smaller, further inside. In whichever way it feels right for you to do that. Okay, pile 2, now I'm going to read from the book. Number 3, The Dissolving Light. It's about 3 pages long. I died as mineral and became a plant. I died as plant and rose to animal. I died as animal and I became human. Why should I fear anything? When was I ever less by dying? Dare to take my hand and become set alight with holy fire, my cherished one. Step forward with me, let us burn together, dissembled in the light that cannot be extinguished. This is the light that burns with such incandescent truth that no falsehood can withstand its audacious vibrancy. Come with me now to the light. Together we shall melt into truth. There is a light so intense, so powerful, that nothing other than itself, its own truth, can exist in its presence. It is the sacred seed, the star of your being, lit up from within. It is the light that never goes out. It is the light that is so powerful, it is beyond duality of light and dark. Cannot ever be extinguished or diminished. And quite simply, beyond all logic, just is. Certainly no lie or deception, no boundary or defense can remain intact in its presence. The blazing divinity of this light sears through any pretense, annihilates illusions, and takes us into stark experience of divine truth. It is gentleness, and yet it cannot be overcome. It is enduring power, and yet it is tender. Though you seek the divine and even know it as love, you also know that it is fierce, wild, inexplicable, and demanding beyond all measure. It wants you. Completely. Utterly. Without condition. There will be times in your life, such as now, when there is something not worthy of you that must be released. This is a falsehood, a lie, or a deception of some kind that you have come to believe about yourself, about your life, or perhaps even another. You may know what that deception is, or it may be about to be unveiled. It is not a cause for fear or concern, but for celebration. An illusion has been or soon will be released, and you shall become freer, free in a way that only truth can provide. This oracle comes to you as a sign of that which is to come, and soon. The beloved divine presence is calling to you, igniting within your deepest being so that it may have its way with you. The divine wishes to live through you and into the world, reaching into the hearts of many and igniting those hearts into greater life. It is a clever and insatiable lover. It will stop at nothing until the entire human race is restored to the wild divine freedom of ecstatic divine reunion, completely and utterly ignited in love. And so the great lover, the divine, calls for you to enter into the white-hot field of its passionate presence. There will be sizzle and burn. It cannot be otherwise. In the height of summer, you cast aside the layers of clothing you require in the winter. This is natural. You do not think twice about it. As you approach the radiant sun of divinity, your emotional and psychological layers are to be shed too, for they are too heavy for the heat of the great spiritual sun. What cannot stand the heavenly heat is to be cast aside swiftly by conscious choice, or shall simply burn up, dissolving in the light and melting away. What is left shall be what is true. So here is your guidance, sweet lover of the great beloved. Give it up. The smallness, the conditions, the fears and doubts, the lack of reverence for yourself and life, the belief that somehow things are not okay or aren't going to work out. That is all a paltry attempt at truth. You are coming into a truth now that is far more worthy of you. A truth with a capital T, the big truth. Love, trust, surrender. This is about a sacred shedding without fear or holding back. Cast aside whatever would hold you back rather than free you to fly into your divine destiny. You are not to be the same from this moment on. That is the holy word, the word inscribed in living divine fire in your sacred heart. This oracle brings you guidance. Trust in your changing perspective and perceptions. Don't hold on to what you once believed or thought to be true. Allow yourself to be shown another version of events, another way of perceiving. Don't focus on what is not working in your current estimation of things, for that is nothing more than a passing opinion. You are being given an opportunity to see and know yourself, others, and particular life circumstances very differently. Embrace it. Don't resist what is being shown to you, for even if there are some struggles in adjusting your view at first, ultimately this change in perception will free you and bring you more deeply into the wellspring of your own inner peace and happiness. Sacred honoring ritual. Place both hands on your heart and say the following aloud. The eternal light of Rumi burns through that which is unworthy and frees me into unconditional love and truth now. I am blessed by the grace of this sacred brother, and I open my heart to the tender fire of passionate presence. Through merciful compassion in my own free will, I ask to be shown the greater truth that will set me free. So be it. Relax with your hands on your heart for as long as it feels good. When you're ready, simply open your eyes. You've completed your sacred honoring ritual. You can repeat this anytime you feel the need to let go of a self-limiting behavior, judgment of a person or situation that drains rather than leaves you feeling vibrant and free, or beliefs that deplete and depress you rather than open you up to loving and endless possibilities. This ritual is a way to tap into supportive grace to assist you in that conscious surrender. You will be blessed, beloved. Okay, pile 2. I'm so glad you were here. I'm so glad that you watched till the end. And I'm grateful to have you on my channel. I really appreciated reading for you. It was an honor. Hope to see you soon. And let's check. Are we still recording? Hooray. Hello, pile 3. If you chose the Tarot of the Divine with this Temperance card, this will be your reading. And so we are tapping into What is your spirituality? So far we have 10 of Swords reversed, 2 of Swords. Three of Swords reversed, King of Cups reversed, Page of Coins reversed. Knight of Wands reversed, Strength reversed, 10 of Wands, Queen of Swords reversed, Ace of Swords, 8 of Swords. Back of the deck is 2 of Coins. Lots of swords and pentacles. You may be an air sign, Libra, Gemini, Aquarius. You don't have to be. Give me just a moment to tap into this here. So I'm going to use a deck to clarify here. The first thing I'm getting that's coming through about your spirituality is there's something you're running from. Pile 3. And I'm trying to understand what that might be. Look at that, 2 of Coins again at the bottom of this deck. So what is your spirituality? Your spirituality is dual. And you have what I would describe as a dual nature. Now this isn't a bad thing. There's several signs that have a dual nature. I mean, one that's coming up immediately to mind is Gemini. So you might have Gemini placements. I would say so your spirituality is one side of you. Like if you see this card here, the 2 of Coins, in a traditional tarot deck, it would be someone juggling 2 pentacles. And here you see this woman that has 2 children that are both half bear, half human, just opposite sides, that she's kind of juggling, I guess, or holding both of them. And so there's 2 sides to you, pile 3. There's the side that feels like spirituality is useful to you, certain parts of it anyway, which that will be a little bit different for each of you. And then there's the part of you that finds it almost utterly useless. Maybe you would use a different word than useless. There's a side of you that doesn't want to think about it, doesn't want to consider the spiritual side of life, wants to just be free. You might have some connection to pile 2. Parts of it may resonate. So I'm getting a little bit of a similar theme, but definitely watch this one first, because if you were to start with that one, I don't think it would work the same way. But the reason I'm getting that is there's something that engaging spirituality brings up for you that makes you feel trapped, that makes you tap into emotions you don't want to feel, that you don't want to deal with, that brings up unwelcome memories from the past. And so you can only go into it so far. So it's like you'll put a foot in, test the waters, and then as soon as it gets overwhelming, you dip and you go somewhere else. You try something else. You follow your impulses, your intuition. Go have some fun. Go meet up with some friends. So, and just to give you a sense of where I'm getting that from, we have the 3 of Swords reversed, which is about healing of heartbreak, with the 10 of Wands clarifying that, which is that it's like a really heavy burden for you managing the accumulation of wounds or heartbreak that you've had in your life. We have the King of Cups reversed, which is a similar message. King of Cups reversed is like being overwhelmed by the degree of emotion, clarified by Queen of Swords reversed. Oh, you know what? I'm getting it. So the key to your spirituality, this is going to sound weird, but hang with me for a minute to see if it resonates for you. Your spirituality is severely impacted by your relationship with your mother. I think at least subconsciously you associate spirituality with the feminine side of life, of the world, of yourself. And when I say feminine side, I mean, that part of us that's emotional, creative, receptive, fluid, going with the flow of life. And your experience with your mother, who was the embodiment of feminine energy to you, was not that. Your experience was someone perhaps controlling, manipulative, not to be trusted, very cutting with their words. Not a soft place for you to land. So anytime you engage your spirituality, and you do, and it gets to a certain level where it touches on the part of your heart that has been severely injured by this mother wound, you shut down and you go away. You may see a similar pattern in your relationships, romantic relationships, but also friendships. So, and in case it wasn't clear, let me describe the pattern one more time. So the pattern is, I know I'm a spiritual person. I know that I have emotions and a feminine side that I want to engage, so I do that. I'm vulnerable with my friends or with the people I'm dating. I go to church or synagogue, or temple or whatever religious system you are dabbling in. I go to that place of worship or place of learning or study and dip my toes into that. And up to a point, it feels really good. And then there'll be a moment of pain, of overwhelm, of searing injury, it almost feels like, in that relationship, in that spiritual system, in that friendship. At that point, I stop the activity, stop the relationship, stop the community I was a part of, perhaps, and redirect and start over somewhere new. So let me give the example of a friendship. It's just the one that's coming to mind right now. So you may have noticed a particular pattern in your relationships and your friendships, let's say, where you're hanging out with somebody, you're getting along, it feels really good, you're feeling the love, you're feeling the flow, you feel very open-hearted with them. Everything feels beautiful. Then you have a moment. They say something that you find incredibly rude or tactless or insulting. They confront you about something, they bring a problem to you, they start a fight with you. They, and from your point of view, everything was great, and then they do something, I'm hearing the word unforgivable, or something that spoils everything. And then when that happens, you cancel that situation, don't engage, and then you go off and start a similar pattern over again. Of course, it never feels like that because it just feels like, oh, this person's terrible. I'm canceling this. I'm moving on. But I think if you're honest and looking back, you notice that the same thing's happening over and over. So that's a friendship example. I'm just using that because I think that may be where you've seen it most clearly in your life. Here's how it comes through with spirituality. I think you feel some kind of connection to the spiritual world. And the way each person in this group defines it's going to be a little bit different, but the important part of the message is this. Whatever that connection is that you feel to spirit, as you engage it, you come to a point where it feels like you hit a wall. There's some zen, there's some feelings of peace, contentment, enlightenment perhaps, and then something goes wrong. It either goes wrong or it stops and it becomes numb or negative. And what Spirit's coming through to tell you right now, and the reason you're getting this message, is it's wanting to have like neon lights all pointing to this mother wound. So because of this childhood experience, and I guess for some of you, maybe it wasn't a mother. I mean, it could, whoever the nurturing figure was for you, which may not have been a female, it could have been, could have been any person in your life. In some cases, this might be just for like one of you. It could have been a romantic partner that just did you really, really wrong when you were maybe like your first love kind of deal. Although, actually, as I'm saying that, most of you would resonate about that having happened also, because that's what happens when, unfortunately, this is kind of one of those shitty laws of the universe. When you have a wound, you keep getting re-wounded in that place until it's healed, which is kind of the worst way to organize a system, in my opinion, but it just happens to be true. So, all signs are pointing to healing this relationship with the mother. And unfortunately, what happened to you from this experience is there's a certain part of your heart, of your own emotional self, that you blocked off. And you did this for really good reason, Pile 3. I'm getting that you did this to survive. I'm going to say a little bit more about this. If you're feeling a little sensitive and not wanting to continue with this reading today, maybe come back at a different time, because we're going to talk a little bit about childhood trauma here. So if you were in, let me just tell this story and think of this maybe not as yourself, but as if you were hearing this about someone else. So there's a child, an open-hearted, playful, mischievous child, like many of them are, who is just a pure and innocent being, right? And they have a mother that loves them very much. But this particular mother has had a similar wound to what she delivers to the child. She has never fully embodied her feminine energy, her own heart. She has shut herself off from much of her emotion. And so the only way she knows to express love is to be controlling, to manipulate, to trap is the word I just heard. and to pretend. So, and make no mistake, this mother loves the child. It's not a question of whether love is there, but this mother needs the child to feel okay. They need the closeness. They need to, in a way, they need to feed off that child's innocence and purity. They don't have that for themselves because they're so shut off. You know what this is reminding me of? There may be some Enneagram people here in this pile. So if you know the Enneagram, you may know Enneagram type 8. Just hang with me. If you don't, I'll explain it. So Enneagram type 8, the positive qualities of type 8 are that they're larger than life. They have this sense of aliveness, strength, power, immediacy. But when 8s are unhealthy or exaggerated, they have this dynamic that comes in for them where they, it's like they're trying to become stronger and stronger. And so to have that experience, they shut off the innocent and pure sides of themselves more and more. They shut their hearts down. And so what happens if you shut your heart down? Well, you still need that sense of beauty, aliveness, innocence, purity in your life. All of us do. We all need some of that. So they find ways to extract that. They use people and things to get that. There's all sorts of ways people can do this. And of course it exists in a range. You know, for some people it might be really mild. Some people do it more at work than at home. And actually the word for this, each Enneagram type has a particular, what they call passion. It's kind of like the Achilles heel of that type. And for type 8, it's called lust. And so it's a different way to think about lust. I mean, usually when we use that word, we think about using someone for their body. But actually, it's extracting purity, innocence, open-heartedness, extracting that from somebody else, using it for yourself so you can not feel so dead inside. And again, if there's any type 8s here, like I'm not trying to cast shade on type 8s. Like it's what's operating in them at all times. You could hear me talk about 4. It gets real dark with them too. I actually love type 8s. I'm kind of surrounded by them. My partner's an 8. I have some best friends that are 8s. So I think it's a really beautiful way of being in the world. And when it's unhealthy, this is the damage it creates. So back to the point, this mother, whether or not they were an Enneagram type 8, had 8-ish qualities in which they needed this child to feel alive, to feel connected to their own heart, which if you're a young kid, that can feel like love. You know, that can feel like nurturing. Oh, this person wants me around. They just like me so much. But actually, it's being used, being tricked, being duped. And so now, pile 3, what happens when this child grows up? Well, at some point, the child might figure this out. They're probably pretty smart. I mean, this is an air sign child we're talking about. Very mental. They'll start putting all the pieces together and noticing, oh, maybe this isn't good for me. I kind of feel yucky sometimes around this person, but it's my mom. And then as time goes on, the child figures out, actually, this is really not okay. This really doesn't feel good. Maybe around, early teens, middle school, high school age, when you're starting to differentiate, find your sense of self, you realize this is not okay. This is unhealthy. This person is kind of sick, actually, in the heart space, maybe. This is not safe. And so at least by that time, possibly younger, then the child decides, I can't let anyone access this part of me. they'll hurt me the same way this mother did. They'll use me. They'll drain me. They'll take everything I have inside of me. And so here's the really messed up part, pile 3. Close your ears, again, if you're feeling sensitive. Yikes, the things I have to talk about on this channel. If you're in a state where this is still unhealed in you, where you still have this gaping wound delivered to you by your mother, you will recreate this pattern. You may not see it, but again, taking this example of the friendships, you may now be the one who, because you can't access that part of your heart that you've shut off to protect it, now you're the one who is trying to do anything to feel alive, to feel like you aren't dead inside. If you meet someone who lights that part of you, who lights the fire for you, you may be with them until they show up and burst the bubble with a conflict, with a need, with something that annoys or insults you. And then you leave and you find your next source. This can exist, again, on a range from very mild to extreme. And I'm saying this with only love and compassion for you, pile 3. The reason that you have this dynamic in your life is not your fault. Any child who went through what you went through would have this experience. So I'm saying this in hopes to provide some clarity, I suppose, if you haven't understood why you function this way. And I also want to remind everyone here, this is a tarot reading given for many people. It's not a private reading. Even if it was a private reading, everything, some messages will be just right for you for that day and others won't. If you're in a tarot reading and it's feeling very triggering and overwhelming, if you're feeling extreme anger or frustration, it's either not your message or not the time for your message. You never have to take anything I'm saying or any other reader is saying as truth. I'm just mentioning that because I'm feeling like some of you may be really angry listening to this message, and I can understand that. But please don't come for me in the comments. They will be deleted. Goodness. How this relates to spirituality. When you engage your spirituality, the same dynamic will be at play. Part of your heart will be touched. Part of it will feel open. You'll feel like you're getting some sustenance, some nurturing from your spiritual practice. And then that practice in some way will require something of you. It will require you to be in more of a masculine energy. It will require you to give something back, to have discipline in some area, to adhere to a moral code, let's say, or a code of conduct. Maybe those are the things that would then cause you to shut down and leave. And so the key to this whole thing is the mother wound, but also the fact that you're so solidly in your feminine energy, actually. And feminine energy isn't a bad thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's important. It's half the picture. Feminine energy is receiving, allowing others to give to us, letting ourselves be nurtured. But you can imagine what happens if you're in a relationship, can't you, pile 3? If you only show up looking to receive. So the invitation here is for you to, in all ways, your spirituality as well as your other parts of your life, to engage masculine energy. What does right action mean for me in this situation? What is the thing that Spirit is calling me to move towards? I could do a whole reading just on that. I won't for today. I want to ask this question. What have I missed here or said incorrectly, been too harsh about, missed the point about for pile 3? This is a hard message, pile 3. Queen of Swords over the Queen of Swords with the Knight of Swords. This person legitimately injured you with the way that they used their words in a way that was impossible for a young child to withstand. This very legitimately makes you very sensitive to verbal criticism, pushback, or negativity from others. In fact, you're so sensitive, you may be just not even able to tolerate it. And perhaps everything feels like conflict to you. Wow, yeah, look at this. So if you're looking for a place to start with healing your spirituality, healing your relationships, healing your inner self, releasing some of this heartbreak, it's around building the muscle, building your tolerance to hearing negative feedback. You're not going to like my recommendation, I don't think here, but it's what's coming to mind. So, you know the idea of immersion therapy, right? Made famous in working with phobias, actually. So let's say if you were terrified of white rabbits, immersion therapy would have you spend 5 minutes in a room alone with a white rabbit, then 10 minutes, then 20 minutes, then 30 minutes, then 40 minutes. The small wounded child part of you is terrified of being verbally dressed down because of how painful it was as a child. And you're not that child anymore. There's that part of you, yes, but you're now an adult. You can defend yourself. You can hear negative things about yourself. And I'm hearing sometimes as an adult, I mean, the situations that you're in most times, more times than not, they are legitimate complaints, actually, type 3. Type 3? Why'd I say that? Yeah, you really must be connected to the Enneagram somehow, this pile, I think, because that hasn't come up today yet. And that's the second time. So, advice from Spirit for you, how to take the next steps in your life and in your spirituality. The good news is that it's all one thing. It's growing the muscle of tolerating negative feedback from others. Being able to hold on to yourself, hold on to your sense of self, not be flooded with emotion or flooded with memories of trauma when that happens. And I can even just hear you saying, yeah, that'd be great. I'll snap my fingers. I'll get right on that. Right. I'm not saying that you can change that overnight. Pile 3. But what you can do is next time you're in that situation, perhaps say something like, I'm feeling really overwhelmed right now. Do you mind if we take 2 or 3 minutes to just breathe and center? I want to find my feet, and then we can keep talking about this. Do it as many times as you need to. And that doesn't also mean that you have to finish the conversation that day. You can come back to it, as long as you do come back to it. The source of much of your pain in your life, or things, like if you're at this reading and frustrated with other things in your life and maybe what the results have been or how things have gone, I'm hearing a major reason things have gone the way that they have is this quality of giving up too soon, or running away, or canceling too early. If you can even practice sticking around 5% longer, if you do that for a while, then, and that becomes more normal, feels more comfortable, then you can move up to 10%, then 15%, and on. just because you were legitimately traumatized and injured by this person in your early life, that can both be absolutely true, tragic, and not your fault. And as an adult now, it's your responsibility to not be defined by this anymore, and healing is possible. Again, I'm not blaming you, pile 3, for this dynamic. I'm just trying to say you can't run from this anymore. The key to your happiness, your peace, your spirituality, your relationships, every good thing in your life, there is one key to it, and it's allowing this part of you to transform. And all that's required for you to allow this to transform is to stick with the feeling. Allow yourself to be uncomfortable. Allow yourself to feel flooded. And grow the muscle of sticking in, staying there. I want to pull a final message for you, pile 3. I feel like this was a really tough reading. Sometimes I feel that way, and then I hear feedback from the person like, no, it wasn't that tough. It's totally fine. Like, I've been working with that for a while. So if that's you, I'd really appreciate to hear that, because I'm almost getting the sense that, like, I don't know, everybody in this pile is going to be super angry and pissed off at me. Which, that happens. It's okay if that happens. But I'd just rather the messages feel good, you know? So that's what I want to do now. I want to... Oh, and you know what I just realized? So for those of you that are still here at the end of the reading, you did it. You did it today. You listened to me say all these really hard things, and you're still here at the end of the reading. So that's amazing. I'm going to pull one card from this deck and one love bomb card for you to finish this reading. So maybe you've recognized these patterns already, pile 3, especially those of you that are here now and starting to heal it. Already. If so, good for you. There will be a positive result from that. I knew that was going to come out. Oh my goodness. That is really creepy, actually. I'm a little weirded out right now. That's so funny that I saw that was going to come out. Okay. To end your reading, pile 3. You've been through the worst of it. It won't get worse than this. You've come to the place of acceptance and forgiveness of yourself, of those in your life that hurt you, past and present. The challenges that you've had with being able to speak your own mind, share your emotions, open your heart, be verbally expressive. I'm even hearing selective mutism for some. Your challenges with that, there's a promise here from Spirit that those will heal and will resolve for you in this lifetime. The timeline is going to be different for everyone, but yeah, don't lose hope. You're on the right path. You're doing everything you need to do, and your future is not your past. Thank you, pile 3. Hope to see you again. And I just have to say, I'm just really impressed and inspired. See you next time. Okay. Let's see, are we still recording? We are. Amazing. Pile 4. Hi, pile 4. If you picked this Temperance card and the New York City Tarot deck, let's get into your reading. And so this is, what is your spirituality? So far we have 7 of Swords, 7 of Pentacles, 2 sevens so far. 10 of Pentacles, Fool card reversed. Wow. Queen of Cups reversed at the bottom of the deck. Page of Wands in reverse. Strength card. 10 of Cups. The Moon in reverse. King of Wands in reverse. Some of you are from pile 3 and decided to just keep watching. I see you. Others of you that just arrived at this reading, welcome to you too. Let me tap in here for a moment to get your message. I'm still here, just thinking. You can see the comments now. There's 30 seconds of dead space in pile 4. Okay, your spirituality, pile 4. I don't think you have any idea. I'm getting a lot of confusion come through for this pile. A lot of, you know what it is actually. So the only Swords card that we have here is the 7 of Swords, which I take to mean about deception, deception of self or others. So this is the only mental card that we have in your spread. The rest, we have a lot of earth and fire energy. So your spirituality, there's a real resistance to kind of like the study side of things or the theology side of things. Maybe you've learned in your life that studying a religion, let's say, doesn't do a lot for you as a mental exercise. It doesn't help you tap into your spirituality actually. So that can leave you with some confusion. So there's 2 truths that are here, pile 4. So the one truth is, yes, you are a more earth and fire combination person. So, okay, so earth signs are Capricorn, Virgo, and Taurus. Fire is Leo, Aries, Sagittarius. So you probably have both of those strong in your chart. And so you know this about yourself, whether or not you would use that language. You know that you're more about like sensing things in your body, knowing what's grounded, what's earthy, what's true, what holds weight, what holds water. You can sense those things. You know those things. You don't have to read a 500-page book to be able to understand what you think about something. A lot of times you can just say, you just kind of know if something's true or not, or if something's right for you or not. You know what happiness is. You know what life is about for you. You're not foolish or haphazard. At the same time, there's a resistance to your mental body. So let me explain what I mean. We all have a brain, right? But some of us use it in a different level of priority than others. This is reminding me of the Enneagram, which is separated into head, heart, and belly, the 3 centers. So you don't need to know your Enneagram type from what I'm about to tell you, but it's just the concept. So there's the idea that there's your heart intelligence. So what do I feel? What can I understand intuitively, spiritually, let's say? I tend to think of spirituality as coming primarily through the heart center, but not always, in all cases. So that's the heart center. The belly center is, what does my body know? What's my instinct about that? What's my gut read, my gut feeling? The shudder that just goes through me and gives me all the information I need to know. That's belly center intelligence. You are very tapped into both of those. The third one is head center. What do I logically know? What computes? What makes sense? How does the data add up? That is your, let's say, least favorite of the 3. Again, nothing wrong with that, pile 4. But it defines and impacts your spirituality a lot. For example, here's one way it would impact your spirituality. If you go to a traditional church, I'm thinking right now of a Christian church just because it's my background, but if you go to a Christian church and then you are listening to a sermon and that sermon is very based in theology, there's lots of Bible verses and references, it's going to bore you to tears. You probably even have the belief like, I don't grow from sermons. Or perhaps even similarly, like you don't like listening to podcasts or you know what example is coming to mind right now? This is interesting. I wonder if this is going to be my pile later when I pick this. So here's an example of something you might relate to. And this is a story about myself. So I actually really don't like podcasts. I also really don't like a lot of like chit chat, or it's not even small talk. I am personally very easily frustrated by a lot of verbal fluff. And if I use a book, for example, like reading a 500-page book, there's probably what needed to be said could have been said in 100 of those pages, maybe even 50 of those pages, or 20. This is the way that I personally think, okay? I'm not saying it's the truth. I tend to not like podcasts. However, I have found this one podcast that I actually really like. That is called, I don't remember, maybe Crime Psychology and, oh my goodness, I'm not remembering. But basically, it's short 20-minute segments about a crime and then an analysis of the person's mental state, and then the moderator of the podcast says whether they think that the person was guilty or not, what they thought was going on with them psychologically. It's a person that has their PhD in criminal and is like a criminal psychologist kind of. The thing I love about this podcast, and this is the point of my story, is that the way this man describes these crimes, it almost reads like a Wikipedia article or something. It's bullet points. It's factual. It's here are the pieces that you need to understand. And in a way, I literally have never put this together for myself before until right now, Pile 4, so you're on a journey with me. Thank you for your patience. In a way, that's kind of like baby steps for the head center, because I actually really relate to this. Even though I consider myself, intelligent and brainy and did a lot of academics and high-level classes and whatever, it's never been the place I'm happiest hanging out, is just in the brain. Which I think is what annoys me then, to listen to someone talking on for 10 minutes and trying to understand what's the point of what they're saying. Having to mine for that, I find, is really difficult. But when it's given to me in just short, simple sentences, bullet points, that's what helps me engage with my brain space. What does this have to do with spirituality, you might ask? Well, if we apply this to spirituality, you might have a similar approach to this, where your relationship with God, and I do think you see yourself as having a relationship with some kind of being larger than you, which may mean that you're a monotheist. Actually, you wouldn't have to be a monotheist, but you're a theist. You have some concept of God or gods outside of yourself. So, in your relationship with this God or gods, you want the communication to be clear and succinct. You don't want to have to study an entire religious system to understand this God. You want short bullet points, text messages going between you and them. Personally, I would say this is why I like tarot, because it's a way, in my mind anyway, to kind of just get to the point, even though there's obviously a lot of intuitive messages to sort through and sift through to get to what that point is. And I want to pull a card now. I'm feeling a little self-conscious, I'll tell you, because I just went into that long story to talk about how important it is to make a succinct point, which clearly I didn't exactly do. So I want to pull a card now for, why was I made to do that? Why was that so important for this reading, for you to hear that? Wow, we have a jokester on our hands. Thank you, Spirit. Did you hear me just ask for like a reason why? And I get this stack of nonsense. Maybe you're also consider yourself a little bit irreverent, pile 4. Why is it important to mention that? It's important to mention that because this is an experience you regularly have in your life where you feel kind of separate from other spiritual people that you want to connect to. You don't want to talk on and on about, well, God is this way or God is that way, or the nature of the world is this or that. You don't enjoy those philosophical discussions, and you find that a lot of spiritual people do that you otherwise would want to relate to, and it's really kind of a heavy burden on you. You're very strong-minded, but you just don't like the mental exploration. If you're going to explore, you want to explore emotionally. So we have that here with the Ace of Cups, and it's reminding me of the back of your deck, which we have Knight of Cups reversed and Queen of Cups reversed. The key to your spirituality, pile 4, is through your heart space. And I'm hearing that even though you are a heart-centered person, and it's one of the ways you engage the world most, you don't open it to your spirituality as much as you might. Maybe that's not always been true for you, but certainly in the most recent period of time, it's been true for you. So what is your spirituality? It's based in your heart and your body. You tend to underemphasize your mental connection to your spirituality right now. And the message that's coming through about that is, it's okay. Everything's perfect, just as it is with that. Perhaps when you were younger, you engaged primarily in a mental way. And so it's like you kind of get burnt out about that. And you don't want to spend your time and effort in that direction anymore. Perhaps you've been most focused on kind of your instinct these days. Your sense of things, energy work. Tapping into the spirit world more through like, what does your body know? And the encouragement here is that actually the place where you'll feel most at home, most connected spiritually is through your emotions. It's funny because the reaction I'm getting from you saying this is like, well, yeah, why didn't I think of that? I'm an emotional person and I'm a heart-centered person. But maybe you don't know exactly what that would be in terms of practices. So let's talk about how you might actively engage the heart with your spirituality. Before we go there, I just want to check in because I'm just very aware that the topic of this reading is, what is your spirituality? And I don't think we talked that much about it, other than I did say that you believe in God or gods. So first I want to just check if there's anything else about that part of the reading, and then we'll go to this opening your heart space thing here in a minute. So Spirit, anything else for my pile 4s about this? What is their spirituality? I just heard it's evolving, constantly evolving. Yeah, we have another emotion card. Yep, it's, wow, 2 major arcana with the 8 of Cups at the bottom. You either currently are in the midst of or very recently have gone through a major faith transition. This may have been walking away from a religion or walking into a religion if, let's say, you were atheist or agnostic before. Whatever this recent change has been, it's been major. It's been major. With the moon reverse, it's about uncovering illusions. With the death card, this is about change and no going back. And I think you have a sense of that, pile 4, that there's no going back to the person you used to be spiritually. And you may have some sadness about that. Yeah. 10 of Swords underneath that with the Ace of Wands. You may have some sadness that, you know, the way that you spiritually engaged before isn't the way that you engage now. But that's okay. This reading's here to tell you that you're exactly where you need to be. Whatever this change has been, it's been for the better. It's been for your good. I think you see that already. I think actually you have much more lightness about you than ever. Something you really value. The other message from this moon card is a promise that this is only the beginning. I mean, the moon card to me is about the depths of the psyche, what's unknown, kind of those murky waters in ourselves emotionally, when you're not sure what's truth, what's fiction, what's an illusion, what's true about you. And so you are just at the beginning of your journey of discovering what's true for you, especially what's emotionally true for you. And because for you, your emotionality and your spirituality are very connected. Couldn't you say that about everybody? Well, yes, but especially for you. I mean, they're all connected in some way, but for you, it's like twinsies. Oh, man. I just know when I go back and watch this pile, I'm going to judge myself so hard for pile 4. Maybe not. Maybe I'll turn over a new leaf. Sometimes I always go back and watch these videos afterwards, and when I hear myself say certain things, I'm just like, oh God, rolling my eyes at myself. But, so it's really been an exercise in self-acceptance and self-love, because I really do love doing them. I'm noticing also in this pile how I'm just kind of like chit-chatting away, maybe not as focused as I would normally want to make myself. And I think that's something really important for you also, pile 4. Maybe you try to make yourself speak in bullet points. Get to the point. Try to make yourself understood. Ooh, yep, here we go. Okay, so interesting today with the childhood patterns. I've had so much childhood stuff come into this reading in every pile. And so for you, pile 4, your family of origin, when I say they didn't understand your emotions, wow. Let's use a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being perfectly understood. On some of the best days of your early life, you got a 3. I'll just leave it there. Some of you, well, whatever. Yeah, I'll just leave it there. So is it any wonder that you don't always understand your own emotions, or that you don't want to go there? You have no trust or very little trust that you'll be understood by others. Maybe it's why you got so good at understanding other people. Maybe it's why you wanted to study psychology and emotions. To understand yourself and never be in a position again like that. Maybe that's why you picked the partner you did. A very water signy person. Very connected to their heart space, very nurturing and empathic. Okay, so we're asking how to engage your heart space with your spirituality. And I felt drawn to using the Love Bombs Oracle. I have no idea how I'm going to read from this with this question. So we're going to find out together, Pile 4. Here we go. Your support really means a lot to me. Thank you. Your example inspires me to be better. You made my day. Thank you. I admire your big thinking. I'm really grateful to have you in my life. We might not be related, but I consider you family. If I really needed help, you'd be the first person I would call. Thank you for being there for me. It's a privilege to have you as a friend. Your calming presence is truly appreciated. Your child has excellent manners. Great job. I admire your willingness to help others. Your smile is contagious. Thank you. I admire your kindness. Let me just check to see if you can... Oh my goodness, you can. You can see all of them. How exciting. Okay, let me tap into this for a moment. I'm going to take my time because apparently that's what this pile's about today. So these messages are examples of simple, everyday responses or forms of feedback that you did not receive as a kid. They're also examples of the environment you need now. When I say environment, I mean who you live with, who you work with, your friends, your family, who you interact with on a daily basis. If you have 100 interactions with people in a day, the way to open your heart and go to the next level of your spirituality is to have 100 out of 100 of those interactions include a phrase like what you see here. Perhaps in the past, you've known this at some level, and so you've brought these phrases. You've been the carrier of these phrases into spaces. The only problem with that is the spaces you brought them into were too much like your system of origin, whether that's your family, your culture of origin, your hometown. So you gave these phrases, you gave this encouragement, these heart-opening things to say, but then you wouldn't get anything back. Maybe you thought, I should just try harder. If I give more of this, eventually people will reciprocate. They'll learn, their hearts will open, they'll feel how good it is to have this said about them and start to give it back. Perhaps you even did that until you broke. That story will be different for each of you. And then you realize the problem isn't me, and the problem isn't my heart. It's the hearts I'm surrounding myself with. It's not to shame the people you were around before. They are on their own journeys. Everything is perfect. I just may not understand why, which I learned recently is a tantric phrase, which I really like. So you're encouraged to look at your environment. Most of us can't ever be at 100, but take stock of where you are right now. How many of your interactions include these phrases coming from the other party? The closer you are to 100, the more happy and healed you'll be. And again, I hear someone saying, well, isn't that true for anybody? Like, yeah, it'd be great to be around a constant stream of positivity. Yes, but because of your uniqueness, who you are as a person, I was talking about this in another pile, about how different piles are plants, or people are plants, and you have different soil conditions you need. For you, pile 4, the soil condition that you need is verbal affirmation, acknowledgement with words of how you matter. I'm resonating so hard with this pile. It's a little uncomfortable, actually. Because I almost feel a little bit guilty, like I'm reading just for me, which, why would I feel guilty? My fucking channel. It's reminding me of a story to tell, which I don't know exactly how it connects, but I'm going to tell it because that's what I'm doing in this pile, just meandering and doing my thing. I don't recall being told by my parents or siblings that they love me. Actually, I don't recall that from anyone I'm related to in my younger years. Which is ironic because in many ways my family members are very loving, but they show up with more like acts of service, consistency, like very good people, very responsible, well-meaning, but any kind of open-heartedness or verbal anything just isn't a thing. Enneagram speaking, I'm the only heart type in my extended family. So you Enneagram people, you kind of know what that might be like. So there was just no attention to caretaking each other's sense of self. So now that's something I'm very sensitive to in helping others with and in myself. But the story I was going to tell you, or the thing I was going to mention, is after college? Well, in my 20s, sometime in my 20s, when I moved from living with my parents to just talking to them on the phone occasionally, I started saying, I love you. I love you, Mom. I love you, Dad. I love you, Kate. I love you, Mike. Anytime I would talk to them on the phone. Which felt so healing for me. Just say that. And usually they'd say it back. I think I'm mentioning that because... Why am I mentioning that? It almost feels like acknowledging to myself the poverty in my own life. Of these kinds of messages. So the way I started out was just to say a simple, I love you. Just acknowledge that someone means something to me. And I feel really grateful that I personally found good friends early in my life where we did share this kind of open-heartedness and connection emotionally. But I definitely put myself in some really toxic spaces, particularly professionally. One for almost 10 years where there was none of this. It was really damaging. So the point of all of this sharing for me personally, actually, I'm not even going to think about the point of it. You can decide that for yourself. This was just what I was called to do for this reading, I think. The question we asked was, how do you integrate your emotion into your spirituality? There must be something about you, Pile 4, that you believe spirituality is not a separate set of activities that you do. It's not like there is secular and sacred and those things are separate from each other. Everything belongs. Everything is spiritual. Everything is sacred. And so your emotions are sacred. Your sense of self is sacred. How you are emotionally with yourself and with others is sacred. And so your spirituality grows and deepens when you open your heart and when you find places where you feel safe and nurtured and seen. I think that's it, Pile 4. Feels like there's maybe one other thing I should pull, but I'm not sure what it is. Let me just think about it for a second. I'm just going to pull one card from this deck, the Ethereal Visions deck. Some of you might have been sad you didn't see it yet today. I normally read with this one. So one card to close the reading. 5 of Swords. 5 of Swords is often about ego issues, winning at all costs, selfishness, being egotistical. I think this is how you judge yourself, and maybe how you were judged in your family of origin. You're so focused on what other people think of you. Why do you need to know that all the time? Why can't you just be confident? Why can't you feel secure in yourself? Everyone needs different soil, Pile 4. There's nothing wrong with you. Thank you for coming by. Look at that. Sorry, I'm a Capricorn, so I'm like, oh, it's my card. I mean, definitely my pile. But anyway, thank you, Pile 4. Thank you for coming by. Leave a like, comment, or subscribe. I'll see you in another reading. Bye-bye.